Hey, what's up, guys? Today we got Joe. We got Joe Calloway on the podcast today.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you being here. So, Joe, did Canaan give you the rundown a little bit about what this podcast is, who we are, what we do?
I do know it. I know you guys well, so I know the down low on it.
Yeah, so basically, like we have a clothing brand called Loco Life, and then we started creating a podcast to like motivate young adults that don't really like know what they do. We try to give them like different opportunities and like different skills and spaces that they can utilize to become successful in life. Today, we're talking a little bit about how can young adults find like what they're good at, like their passion.
So I would say, just like you guys have been doing it since you were just teenagers, going out after it. Now that's a very rare skill in a lot of young people who are actually trying to figure things out. I think I met Canaan when he was 14.
Yeah, I was 14, 15.
14, and you were reaching out when I was doing similar social media endeavors that you guys are doing today. You found me and you reached out, and you kept reaching out until you got the answer, and then we had lunch, and then we've been solid friends since, and then you've been able to get that help that you need, and I've also benefited from that relationship too. I met a great young person, as well as had some hardcore sweat labor during the summer times, digging ditches. So I think reaching out to solid mentors and understanding that the mentors that you want are going to be busy, and if you take no for an answer, they're gonna never get to you. But if you keep going and going and going, eventually they're going to hit you back and go, man, this kid's persistent. This guy's persistent. This young person's persistent. And most successful people that you want to be involved with ultimately are going to appreciate persistence. So I think going for it, find that person and don't stop knocking on the doors, calling. Don't just hit them up on Instagram or, that's what everyone does to me. I don't check my Instagram. I'm old. I don't check my messages. You better hit me up through a postal letter or a carrier pigeon or something. You got to figure out how to get to that demographic, because the people you really want to talk to are not the Jake Pauls or these goofballs, young dudes. I mean, he's a Disney star. Very entertaining, no doubt about it. Very interesting. But if you're truly trying to do business, business is not being a Disney star into a social media boxer. Business is cutting grass. Business is starting an apparel brand. Business is starting a consulting brand or providing some good or services. So you got to make sure you reach out to those right mentors, and oftentimes they're boring and old, just like myself.
Yeah, so like basically he's saying that everyone has to stay persistent in what you do. You can't just try like once. And then like what would you say would be the example of like a bad mentor, and then like someone you should look for and like someone you shouldn't look for? Like you were saying like Jake Paul and everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of young people. That's why I asked you guys what's your purpose of this podcast, and it was a very astute answer and something that I'm very proud of both of you for doing. Trying to provide real value and advice, not from a place that you guys are sitting there pounding your chest saying, hey, you guys are both super successful multimillionaires, but from a place of discovery, and you're looking to discover. A lot of these mentors that people are trying to get a hold of, and I don't know Jake Paul. He might be the best dude in the world, but I don't necessarily think it's relevant advice for the 99.9% of America out there looking to achieve something, especially if you grow up in the inner city or you come from a place of poverty, that his stories are not relevant. That's not where he came from. So he has a very different thing, but people ultimately want to meet with that person, that flashy person, the person who, has the bling bling or the big car, or even locally, someone who's saying, hey, I'm tearing it up. And then ultimately all you do is find out that they came from a rich family, and the reason they're driving that Mercedes and pushing the big cars is because their daddy did something and they came out of the right birth canal. So I think that's the place that most people miss the mark. Some of my mentors are what you would see as very old, boring people, who wear sport coats to breakfast. They don't come with any bling bling. They drive a an average sedan. They don't drive a fancy car, but they've been successful for so long, and they have very sage wisdom. And oftentimes the wisdom that works is very boring and very sage. It's very stoic. If you guys aren't into stoic philosophy, you guys should be, because it's something that has lasted for thousands upon thousands of years and still resonates. And a lot of those lessons are based around simplicity. So find the simple mentor who has real success. That's the bullet point. The simple mentor who has real success. And how do you find real success? If you can't Google, in today's age, if you can't Google someone and their name and they don't pop in real relevant media, then they're probably not doing anything. I see these mastermind millionaires. When I was your guys' age, I went to Millionaires Mastermind. I paid $3.
There's a lot of masterminds online.
I know.
Everybody's
if you want to be rich tomorrow, sign up for my class.
Everybody's a guru on Google, it seems like.
Yeah. So you have to be able to navigate them, because I still see this stuff, and I see the guy with it's some goofball with a bunch of, sleeves of tattoos, and he's like, yeah, I've been to prison and I came out and I made $1 million. Now I'm going to teach you how to do it. Blah, 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 blah. Look at me, I have muscles and a Ferrari. I'm like, all right, well, what's your business? Like, how'd you make that money? They almost never say. They say, oh, in real estate. Okay, so if you're doing anything of prominence in real estate, then you will be very easily seen in social media through the news. Every solid developer in the Pittsburgh area, most of them are not active on social media other than a poster here or there, but you can Google their name and they're in the Business Times, they're in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, they're on podcasts talking about real projects that they're doing. So if you're looking for a real estate mentor, it's probably not some guru out of Texas selling some $1 million course for $5,000 a ticket. It's probably someone who's actually doing it.
I really liked what you said about the note about Jake Paul, and sometimes you have people that it doesn't apply to like 99% of situations. How does a young person go about finding like that niche that really fits them, with a bunch of different like distractions and stuff on social media, trying to pull people to like this sector, this interest and that? Like, what advice would you give somebody to really find what pertains to them and what they'll be best at?
I will reverse that question to you two guys, because I've known you both for quite a few times, quite a few years since your high school days. What have you guys been doing for the past 7 years?
Working.
Trying things.
Yeah, working, trying new things.
Failing. I mean, every time I talk to Canaan, he's like, I got a new idea, and he wants to try something new. And guess what? I would say most of those are failures. And that's the key. Most of the things that I do are failures. My real estate. I've had dozens of businesses. I've tried dozens of businesses. I've lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, on trying businesses, and I failed. And of those, I failed more times than succeeded. But when I have succeeded, those rewards, the dividends at those successes have far outweighed all those failures. So I try something, and the older I get, the faster I fail. I have I've been trying some restaurants lately, which is a horrible business, but a very interesting business, and I like the people, I like the service industry, and I'd like to help some people do those things. But I have consistently failed in those on all about 3 or 4 ventures now, and lost a lot of money. But I'll eventually get it right. So what you guys should be doing is what you get to or actually have been doing. You're wise beyond your years, because you've started way before I started. I didn't start until my mid-20s trying these things. But you guys have been trying it since you were, knee-high to a grasshopper practically, even though Canaan looked like a grown man when he was 14. Canaan had a beard when he was like 12, I think.
Yeah, I had a goatee. I had the goatee going.
The 25-year-old looking 12-year-old.
When he hit me up on Instagram, I was like, man, why is this grown-ass man asking me for help? Then I realized he was 14.
Yeah, like, bro, go get a job, man.
Like, man, I ain't helping you, man. You should be already graduated from college. You should have 2 jobs by now. And meanwhile, he was 14 years old, and his mom dropped him off at Burgatory.
Yeah, my mom dropped me off. And then, like, I heard you, like, saying earlier that, like, you failed a few times, but, like, you never gave up. So then that should be, like, another point that, like, people listening should have. Like, no matter if you want to try, like, what you're good at, you have to, like, keep trying no matter if you fail or not.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys keep doing it. And It's okay. I think something like with what you're doing in this podcast, which is actually, it won't be as hot or flashy, but it might give 5, 10, 20, 100, 200, 300 people real advice. And that real advice might resonate, and they might actually do something with it. So the successes that you have oftentimes are not measured in dollars or fancy jewelry or whatever it might be. Sometimes they're in, oh man, I really learned a tough lesson on that. I really thought that was going to be a great business venture. I really thought that was going to be. I didn't listen to that advice by that older, boring guy who told me that's a stupid idea. I went out for that and I tried it and I realized, oh man, maybe I should have done a different business. But all those lessons are what's going to be cumulative. And you guys are so young. You're going to think you're behind the time. I was just, busting you up saying I thought you'd be successful by now, but I never thought that, because that's not the norm. The norm of success is frankly is where I'm sitting. I'm about twice your age, and I'm relatively successful. But that's because I'm twice your age, and I've been trying for actually I started a little later than you guys. So as that keeps happening, you'll see these fake people on podcasts, the $1 million masterminds, the bloviators at the club or the bar who's wearing the jewelry, or the person who just got the job and is driving. Hey, I got this great job, I'm making all this money, but really their mom bought their car, their mom pays for their house, and all that, and they're trying to do it. That's not the reality. The reality is struggle and failure, and then ultimately, if you can outlast the people who will quit, a lot of people who are trying to do what you guys will do will quit. One of you two might quit before you hit it, because it might take a decade. I hope you guys don't, but you're going to have to sit there and you're going to have to be humble. You're going to have to be simple. You're going to have to be okay when you see your friends flossing and glossing that you're not doing it. You might hit the home run early. You might hit the grand slam early. That could also be equally as bad, because you hit that grand slam and then you keep swinging for the fences, and then you keep missing. Comfortable. Yeah, that can rip your soul apart, your entrepreneurial soul. If you're too successful earlier, you have a bite at the apple, and then all of a sudden you don't get that bite for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. That's you see a lot of entrepreneurs quit when they have that little bit of success as well, and they don't keep rolling it over.
Especially then, another thing that we try to stress on the podcast is like networking. You tell me even the importance of networking. That's how I met you on social media, just reaching out and trying to build a network of people that you can reach out to, but also have a mutual benefit to them as well. If you can tell us a little bit about how you feel about the importance for young people to network.
Yeah, networking is key, and you two guys are for your age pro at it, and I think both of your skill sets are you guys are extremely humble. You're not sitting there beating on your chest talking about how great you are if you're talking to someone. I want to engage with you guys because I feel like you're active listeners, and you truly do want to take knowledge and stack it and make something out of it. Far too often, young people, including myself, I have a problem with brevity. That's my word of the day I put on the chalkboard, because I talk too much. And I wish when I was your age, I was as active listeners as you. And that's a big part of networking. Everyone thinks it's talking. I'm doing this. 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 And then the person on the other side is like, shut up. I'm tired of hearing your 20-some-year-old voice. I'm 43. You should be listening to me. That's really what's going through that head. Oftentimes. So you guys are phenomenal active listeners. You guys have been pushing yourself into rooms of very important people and adding value. That's the other thing is anything I've ever asked of Canaan, he's done for me. He has been valet at a party I had back in the day.
Valet.
he was the valet. He was literally a hole digger and landscaper and laborer. He was just anything I've ever asked of the young man, he has done for me as well. So it's been a mutual beneficial thing, and some of those things were tests. Sometimes networking isn't going to be all hugs and kisses. It's going to be, hey, I'll tell a story about Canaan. He came in about 16. He worked the year before in the field, in the construction field. I'm in real estate. He thought he was coming in the office and he's going to sit next to me because I'm his guy, you know. He's going to sit in the cushy office and do some computer work, air conditioner.
I got a nice real estate
We
job.
put a shovel in his hand and sent him out there, and he looked broke after the first day. But that's the life lesson. That's the true life lesson. It's truly hard work. It's painful work. That's what success is going to look like, even when you are sitting in that cushy chair. And being able to provide that value mutually is super key to networking.
You know, that job definitely taught me a lot. I remember you work like some long hours, usually like between like 8 to 10 hours at like 16, and then you can see like a bunch of like other like grown men quitting the same job. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this no more. See, that job definitely taught me a lot.
Yep, and some of those jobs might just teach you what you don't want to have to do when you are 40, when you are 45, when you are 50. If you have to keep doing that, that does break down your body. So as a young man, it's good to understand that like hard work and sweat. I enjoy that because that's how I came up, and I like it to this day. But if I had to do it for 10 or 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, like I did when I was in my 20s, my old body would not be able to take it.
And then for a little bit, cause we also talk about how like we usually talk about like how college isn't like the only way, like to set route to success. Can you tell us a little bit about like your time in like the Navy and like how you think that affected you as like a young person?
Yeah, definitely. So I got out of Carrick High School in Pittsburgh. I didn't do too hot on neither the SAT. My nephew told me his SAT score just over the weekend, and it was double what I got. So even if he scored perfect, that's not a real good SAT, and he did not score perfect. And I didn't do good in my grades. I wasn't a real studious. I hung out with a lot of people who did not care about school, and I didn't go to school often. So I didn't have a lot of options, but I came from a family who had military background, so I went to the Navy. And ultimately the Navy, through someone who was very undisciplined, who didn't have a lot of discipline from a strong parental network, and they gave me that discipline where you have to get up, where you have to make your bed, where you have to do these things. It's not the lessons that I think a lot of young people want, but they need. I didn't want them either. I was scared to stay on the streets. I was scared that I saw my friends who were, dabbling in drug sales and things of that nature. And I saw a couple of them getting shot and things like that. I didn't want that for myself. So it was really fear motivated because I didn't want to stay where I was at. But once I got in there, the best lesson I took away was the one that I hated so much, was the discipline, was the constant hand on my shoulder or hand on my back pushing me and telling me I can be better, I can do this. And a lot colleges, I don't think they can do that if you have the right people around you, but oftentimes they'll let someone take a silly degree plan which will give them no result. They can say, hey, what do you like doing? I like basket weaving. Okay, great. We have a master's program in basket weaving, and it's going to cost you $120,000. And they're like, okay, great. I'll take out student loans. They're not sitting there telling you, hey, you better get out of your bed at 6 a.m. So you show up at 6:30, so you're ready to work by 7, and you better work the whole time, because if you don't, there's going to be someone who's going to tell you that. And if you keep doing it, you're going to have some real punishment. And I'm not talking about, oh, you're going to fail out of college. I'm talking you're going to go to what's called captain's mast or non-judicial punishment, or, and you have to, really stand next to some people telling you, hey, you're messed up, young man. You better get your head out of your rear end or things are going to happen. So I think that was probably my best thing. And I got a free education out of it. I got master's degree work all the way through. My undergrad paid for. I got phenomenal travel experience going all around the world. A kid from the inner city doesn't get to, by the time I was 22, I'd been to multiple different continents. I've been to, all these different beautiful places, from diving the Great Barrier Reef in Australia to, climbing Mount Fuji in Japan, and, seeing Mexico, and living in Florida and living in California. Those are things that, college, and I got paid the whole time. So I'm an advocate of military experience, but that's me looking back at it. When I was sitting there getting screamed at, or when I had to work long days, my boss, we'd come in on a Saturday, Chief Dooley, he'd say, it's a half day today, young man. And we're like, yeah. And it was a Saturday already. We wanted to be off, but we weren't. And he says, yep, we're only working 7 to 7. So that's a half day. And he would smile, and guess what? He wasn't joking. We'd work 7 to 7.
You said looking back on it, you really appreciated like all the lessons and like the discipline that the Navy instilled in you. And while you were in it at the time, it wasn't exactly what you wanted to be doing and things like that. How did you remain motivated and continue, like keep that drive in you for something that, you know, you didn't necessarily see the benefit for and wouldn't see for a while?
Well, that's the beauty of the military. You don't have a choice. So the fear of, being kicked out of the military, where it does stay on your record. There are ramifications of failure, and you can't just quit. So that was the real reason I didn't, because I was coming back home and I was seeing my friends who were selling drugs and making money, making a lot of money for a 18, 19, 20-year-old. And that was very challenging to come home, and we'd go to the clubs and they would be the guys. Everyone would be jumping all over them. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm over here serving my country, and these guys are getting treated like rock stars. That was hard. That was hard to want to leave that, and I was living in Guam, and this was in Pittsburgh. Like I don't want to leave Mount Oliver in Pittsburgh, and I'm living on a beautiful tropical island because it was very enticing as a young person. So the real answer to that is I didn't feel like I could quit. And I was stuck into it. And that might be a beautiful mentality for anyone who wants to quit, is act as if you will maybe get sent to jail if you quit. You will fail. You will hurt or feel pain, because it's too easy to quit today. And one of the things about kids who have loving parents, oftentimes, and I might even put myself into this category, I might be an enabler for my kids. I want to cushion their blows. I want to help them. I don't want to see them have pain. And the Navy doesn't care. You know what I mean? When I'm whining, I want to go home. I miss my girlfriend. Shut up. Get to work, right? And then you get to work and you realize, oh, this isn't that bad. And guess what? I shouldn't have been with that girlfriend. And guess what? Home sucks. For me, why would I want to ever go back? And now I can look back on that and go, those were all the right decisions. However, it wasn't beautiful. It wasn't diamonds. It wasn't roses. It was nastiness and hot and getting sunburnt painting for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, and you talked about like the patience, like while you were in the military, like waiting for the gratification. Like a lot of people today, like the patience, like even though I know sometimes my patience is like kind of not where it should be, because like you kind of want it now. What would you give some advice on like how to stay patient and like just follow through like the process?
Kind of like how you talked about like when you went out with your friends and you're seeing like all like the fast money and like them being the man and things like that. How do you stay grounded whenever you're putting in work for something bigger that you might not see for a while?
When I try to put myself at your age, I don't think I was as smart or disciplined as the two of you are. I still to this day jump around and try a lot of things. Maybe it's the ADHD or whatever it is. It's something. But the fear of failure for me was always very real. I did not want to be my dad. I did not want to be the people in my neighborhood. I did not want to be that. I wanted to be something better. I just didn't know how. So that fear of failure was what would keep me going. Maybe it was a weakness in me that I didn't want to admit failure. So I would keep trying and trying and trying. And maybe by the grace of God, I'm not exactly sure why, but I would always fall forward. And maybe it's just when you do feel like failing, or you feel like quitting, or you don't want to do it, or you don't want to get up early, you just do it. And there's no trick to that. Like everyone's looking for the podcast or the thing on YouTube that's going to say, hey, if you take an ice bath, or if you do yoga for 5 minutes a day, or if you do these breathing techniques, those are all interesting ideas, and some of them do help, but they help 1%, 2%. At the end of the day, you have to get inside your head, and then you have to go for it. And you have to say, okay, I don't want to dig this hole. I don't want to show up for work. Joe's, I'll probably put myself in the Canaan's head when he's 16. Joe's an asshole. He just wants cheap child labor. I probably was. I don't even know if I was allowed to hire you at that point. But I want to treat you like if you were my son, this is what the lesson I'd want you to learn. I would want you to be out there next to these guys who are 40 to 50 years old, digging the same holes with their hands broke because they've been smashed with hammers so many times, in the hot sun on a day like today, 80 degrees. That's what I want you to feel. And I want you to feel it when you're 15 or 16. I don't want you to feel that for the first time when you're 25, the first experience. I want that to be ingrained in you. So I want you to feel pain. I want you to feel that. And it's, it might even be easier for me because, I do care about you and I love you. You're a great human being, but you're not my son. So maybe I can push you more. Maybe if I held you as a little baby, I'd want to coddle you, and I'd want you to be safe. I'd want you to be safe. And I would think pain is not safe. But instead, I saw this 14-year-old who I thought was a grown-ass man, because you were about as tall as you are now. You had facial hair. You were a big boy. And I looked at you as a man, but you were still a 14, 15-year-old who in your eyes you were broke. But because you were broke, you built yourself back up, and I believe those things make you stronger. So how do you not quit? You don't quit. You don't do it. Why did Canaan not quit? I'm not sure why. Because he could have. He could have not came back the next day. And I was mentoring two young men at the time, and one of those young men stopped coming back after about a year or two, and he didn't come back. And he did quit that path, and it didn't end up well for him. And he has since passed away because he went down that wrong path. So why doesn't someone quit? I don't know. Both of these young men, Canaan and this other young man, both extremely dynamic, beautiful, strong, smart, articulate, just everything you'd want in a 14, 15-year-old young man to have. Both of them had it. One went down the wrong path. One stayed on it. You veered off a little bit. I'm not going to lay out your dirt on this here podcast. But it's a very interesting thing because you're not unscathed. You did have those trials and tribulations. You did have that pain. You did have those tearful moments, and that's the reality of how you stay on that path. Is you just keep doing it and you keep falling. And when you scrape your knee, you don't have someone pick you up. You have to just stand right back up and do it.
I feel like you have to have like a bigger purpose.
Yeah, like it kind of reminds me of something my dad used to tell me when I was young. He'd always tell me pain is temporary, and I never really it didn't really mean or instill anything to me. And like as I got older, like you really do realize that like the things you don't want to do, whether it's getting up early or going to that job you don't like or whatever the case may be, that's all temporary stuff to for something bigger that you're trying to do. And having that hunger instilled in you and that drive it's what keeps you going whenever you physically you don't want to do it, but mentally you know that you have to.
Yeah, and usually like the stuff that you don't want to do is the stuff that's like going to propel you forward, especially in like the future.
I have a question specifically for young men. What's like 5 habits that you think young men need to like develop early on in their life?
Physical fitness. I think a lot of guys, young men especially, some of them a lot of them get into it, but they get into it for the wrong reasons, including myself. I used to want to bodybuild because I wanted to look good for the ladies, and I wanted to feel good about myself. And then I started doing it because I wanted to be bigger than the next guy at the gym, or I wanted to be able to lift more weight than the next guy, or I wanted to be able to jump higher when I was playing basketball. So I would train for those reasons. But the reality of it is physical fitness should be something that you do first thing in the morning. I try to do it this morning because I am behind. I'm not a good waker upper. I'm not a good pre-planner. I had like 20 things to do before I had to come here. So I was behind. So I didn't not do something. So I did a set of push-ups. I did 3 sets of pull-ups, and I did 3 sets of crunches. It took me about 7 to 8 minutes. I think that's something that if young men would do that, when they get up, you start off your day with success, right? You did it. I don't need you to work out for an hour. I don't need you to be able to be the biggest bodybuilder. So I think physical fitness in short increments and making sure it's a routine, it resets your mind, it releases the chemicals you need. I think reading is super imperative, and not just listening to podcasts. So, for instance, if you like David Goggins, whom I like a lot, but I listened to all of his podcasts, and someone said you should read his book, and I was like, I listen to all his podcasts. Why would I read his book?
I was saying the same thing.
Yeah, but the book is phenomenal, and it goes so much more in depth. So the book, the physical act of I listen to a lot of books, but I also try to read. I'm a very slow reader, but I still force myself to read because I think there's something with the way we're trained as human beings for all these years of reading. we should be reading actual books. Meditation, I think, is super important. Not meditation like where you're going, oh, for an hour a day or sitting on a mountaintop or wearing a robe. I'm just talking about, being at peace with yourself and letting your brain quiet down for 5 minutes. That's something I also did this morning, and I didn't have a lot of time. I had about 12 minutes to work out, meditate, and read. And I did all those things. I read one thing in Ryan Holiday's book, Daily Stoic. That's a beautiful book because it's basically a paragraph. It's a Stoic quote from one of the great philosophers, and then he breaks it down into modern day terms. Ryan Holiday, all of his books are really great about Stoicism. So reading, meditating, working out, eating better. I think eating right, when someone goes, oh, I only do keto, I only eat vegan, it's too hard. It's too hard, and your life becomes consumed, and if you want to be identified by that, and that's what you want to be, you want to lean into that life, fantastic, that's awesome. It's great to be committed to something, especially when it's healthy. I think being a vegan and vegetarian is actually, I believe it's healthier. When I did it, I felt better about it. But I also want to enjoy life, and I like steak and I like ribs, and I'm going to have it. Yeah, I want a burger. So, but I think in general, not eating excessively, 3 meals a day is kind of unnecessary. You can probably eat 1 meal a day. Those kind of things really help. And then I think trying to help out, my relationship with Canaan has been very rewarding for me. It's probably one of my more rewarding accomplishments of the past 10 years. And that's something that's very deep and meaningful. And it's been a mutually beneficial thing. It's been helpful to him. It's been helpful to me. And ultimately, giving back, that's super important. So having meaningful relationships, and then ultimately not having unmeaningful relationships. Cut that out, because so much time. I would never have come to this podcast if I didn't know you two guys. And I know it's going to be something that's rewarding to me. I know it's something rewarding to you. I know you two are good, solid human beings. I'm going to enjoy the time. So I'm going to do it. If Jake Paul called me to do a podcast, I'd probably do it because he has a lot of followers. But I don't know if it'd be as rewarding as sitting here with the two of you, because I care more about the people, not the fame, not any of that stuff. So many people chase that, and it's not about being around a bunch of fancy people. It's about being a bunch of pure, good people who you really like.
And kind of going back to like having good mentors, your good mentors, they're going to chew you out sometimes. Having a good mentor is not always going to be, you're like a bunch of pats on the back, you're doing this great and things like that. Thankfully, Joe gave me and Canaan one of our first opportunities to pitch our first business, LocoCast. We came, this is what he was talking about, us being in suits, and we're a little dressed down today. But we went out, we presented our business plan
for LocoCast.
For LocoCast, and first he gave us the opportunity to present in front of people that we never, normally would never be able to get fit half an hour with. And we did it. It was a rough experience because it was our first time, but we also, as much praise as we got, we also got chewed out a little bit. And it's kind of important to know you need somebody in your corner that's going to be real with you. If somebody's constantly patting your back and things like that, you're never going to really know what you're doing wrong and making adjustments, because life is all about making adjustments and progressing. And if somebody's constantly giving you validation and telling you what's good and not showing you, trying to teach you about what you're doing wrong, I don't think that person's really necessarily invested in your success like that. So always find somebody that's going to be real with you is very, very
true.
Important.
Yeah, no, that's very true, because and then you'll get if people give you too much reward all the time, you'll start to think that you're fine where you're at right now. You'll get comfortable. It's you'll never really progress out at all.
Speaking of somebody who you quoted saying you're relatively successful, what makes you since you are relatively successful, what makes you continue to strive to reach higher levels of success? Coming from a kid from Carrick, who didn't do well in school, things like that. Now that you're probably higher up than you ever thought you would be, what makes you keep wanting to break through the ceiling?
I don't know if I want to anymore. I think I've hit a level where I'm pretty good. I think I will continue to do it. It's an interesting, fun thing for me now. I don't really care. I used to want to have 1,000 units. I have 600. I don't care if I have 1,000 units anymore, because when I identified why I was trying to get to a number, it was to impress all the wrong people. You know what I mean? If I have 600 units or 1,000 units, if I have 100 units or 1,000 units, you guys don't care. I'd still be talking to you guys. So who am I trying to impress? And I tried to do that for a long time. And I think that it's a beautiful thing when you're trying to prove something. You know, that's a beautiful motivator. It's also a beautiful thing when you hit a point. And it has nothing to do with money or success or units or real estate or power. It has something to do with being internal, like, hey, I am good enough, because I always felt I was not good enough because I didn't score good on, I wasn't as smart as, like, for instance, my sister was extremely intelligent and I never scored well in school. She was a great artist. I wasn't a good artist. A lot of my friends were phenomenal athletes. A couple guys could, throw a 90-mile-per-hour fastball and went to do things. Even playing basketball, I was all right. Nothing to write home about. So I was always trying to prove and find my niche of what I could do. And then I was trying to prove to these people. Some of these people didn't even exist. Like, some of them I was still trying to prove to my mom long after she was dead, that I was something special, and I was something of this, trying to prove to people that, maybe it was a past friend or relationship or girlfriend, but I was proving things for the wrong reason. So what kept me going at that point was probably some pretty negative energy. And I think, but that negative energy, it's kind of the Jordan making up stories in his head, during one of his games about how someone insulted him. It never happened. He made that story up. He told it to the press, and then he went out and dropped whatever it was, 40 or 50 points on this guy, because in his head, he was psychotic enough to make up stories that anger fuels. Anger is very powerful, but it also eats away at you and erodes you. And as you get older, and I'm trying to come to sort of a peace with, hey, I have enough. I have enough success, I have enough things, and I really like. So my next thing is I really care about, the zip code I grew up in, 15210, Mount Oliver, Allentown, Beltsuver, Knoxville, Arlington. That's where I'm at. So I'm not even buying stuff outside of that area anymore. I'm not trying to be a big statewide investor. I'm not trying to build. I'm just trying to buy houses, fix them, move businesses in, help businesses, help stabilize this community, give back to the community, and make sure the 15210 where I grew up is strong. So that's the next level of success, but it's not money related anymore, which is oftentimes, how do you get to that next level? The next level would be, oh, I made $1 million. Oh, that's crazy. When I was for my first year in the Navy, I think you make like $11,000 a year in the first year in the Navy. So, hitting that $1 million of actually making $1 million is like, whoa, this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, to you two guys, it's like, wow, that's wow. But I also thought when I was getting out of the Navy, if I was able to make, because I thought I could make $50,000 or $60,000 becoming either a police officer or a pharmaceutical sales rep, I thought if I made $60,000, it would be crazy, because at that point I was making $30,000, and then you make $60,000. It's not crazy. Then all of a sudden, then I went to work for a real estate company. After I was in the process of getting my MBA, and I was making $70,000 a year. I was making more than my mom or my dad. I was making more than most of my friends, any of my friends at that point I grew up with. And I was driving around a company car wearing a fancy suit. And then I started the company. I didn't make anything for many years, but then I started making 60, 70. Then I made 100. Then I made 200. It didn't do anything. It was just counting for the sake of counting. So I think staying motivated, you have to find your own reason for it. And I think I've really found it in, I like the 15210. I like where I grew up at. I like making an impact there. It's small enough for me to do it. I can wrap my head around it. I don't have to deal with anyone from Wall Street. I don't have to deal with big fancy corporate bankers. I don't have to kiss anyone's ass. I don't have to deal with government funding or tax increment financing, where I have to go meet with politicians and this and that. I don't have to do any of that stuff. So I can now mold my own lane, and my happiness no longer comes from that push of the almighty dollar.
Yeah. Also, like, within that, you talked about like your niche in real estate. You guys talk about how like a lot of people say they want to be in real estate, but they kind of just like want to do everything at once. I think you talk about a little bit like how you focused on your passion, like with your community.
Yeah, great question. That took a while, because like I was telling you, for the 20-ish years I've been doing it, every little thing that would come up. Oh, Airbnbs, that's what all those get-rich courses call. That doesn't work, by the way. But Airbnbs, I went down that route. You know why I know it doesn't work? Because I thought, I'm going to do this, And then I looked at it, I was like, how can you do it? With the cleaning fees, the furnishing, your tenants who are going to come in there and rate. Every 10 out of 10 of them, one's going to throw a rager in this trasher place. So I went down all those different things, and I kept trying and trying. And when I would get something that had some traction, I would quickly realize it doesn't do it for me. I had a real estate brokerage. I don't like real estate brokerage. I don't like anything about it. I tried to do a title company. I also don't like that. It's a boring business. You're basically a middleman, and I don't feel like you're providing value. So I didn't like that. I did commercial real estate. I like it, but you're detached from it. It's a bigger number. It's a bigger project, but you're detached from it because it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, to the community. It's not making a big difference. I always love the government funding and all these projects that come into these inner city neighborhoods, but I didn't like the corruption that goes along with it. It makes me kind of sick when I see how much money is squandered and wasted and put into big giant real estate developments when people don't have the proper schooling or food. And I'm going to sit there and participate in that, but I wanted to do that too, and I chased that for a while. So I did all these things. And then recently I found my niche. So you're talking about when I was sort of busting you up on why aren't you successful yet? That was a joke because I'm still trying to figure out how I can become successful in my own head and try to find my niche. And I've been doing it for 20 years and I'm 43. So it's a constant lifelong battle to find that niche. But if you continue to narrow it, and I would say how you find it is when something actually makes you happy. And some people, I think, money makes them happy. And I'm not saying this as, oh, I'm better than you because money, I don't care about money. I do. I deeply care about money. The whole point of me doing real estate was I wanted to make money because I didn't want to be poor. And if you said, hey, you got to go back to being poor, no thanks. Like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to go make some money. I will dig holes to make some money because I'm not going back to that. So money is super important. But if you can find something that makes you the right amount of money for you to be happy, and that might be 50 grand a year, that might be 100 grand a year, that might be $1 million a year. There might be some point, or if you just love stacking that cash, I bet Warren Buffett loves stacking that cash. He doesn't like spending it. Like, he doesn't do it, but there's something about that. That's awesome for him because that truly makes him makes him a lot of money, but makes him happy. But he also doesn't go outside of his investment philosophy. He didn't invest in tech, all these different things. So investing in what you actually love or doing what you actually love is so important. But if you love basket weaving, you better be good at basket weaving. You better find that market. You better find out how to sell it because you don't want to be having a bunch of baskets with no food in it. Starving.
Yeah, you don't want to be starving outside. We got probably one more question. What would you say? How do you deal with people that because you do a lot of community work and stuff, and sometimes there's always naysayers or maybe young people they want to do some stuff, people trying to shut down their dreams or talk about something they did in the past or something bad. How would you deal with that? Like
a naysayer who's just
like a hater or something.
So that's the same thing about relationships. You don't need those relationships. Those are negative relationships. I think it takes a long time, especially when you're young, to say no and to say no to relationships. And those relationships might be someone you're supposed to be close with. They might be someone who you've been close with, but you've grown apart, maybe mentally, whatever it might be. And it's okay to not have those relationships. It's also understanding that person and where that's coming from. And that might be coming from a place of pain. Jealousy is a painful thing. Maybe they're seeing you as rising above them and they want to knock you down a level. That's a painful thing if you can maybe step into their shoes, really strong empathetic skills and really think, okay, why is this person doing this? Oh, it's because they feel like they didn't achieve what they wanted to do and they feel some emptiness. Now I feel sad. Now I kind of feel bad for them. And I can listen to them without getting mad because I know where it's coming from. So I think empathy can help you with that. And then ultimately, if that's a continuing thing, if it's just someone who's haters will hate, then you can't be around those people. But you should never if it's not positive. And sometimes the negative comments are positive. If I have to tell you, hey guys, you better make some revenue on this company because you got to have revenue, you got to have some money, and more important than revenue is profit because a lot of companies have revenue and they don't have any profit. So you better make some profit because eventually you're gonna have to put some food on the table. That might be considered negative, right? But it's good advice. So it's not necessarily the negative information, it's the negative intent. It's the person who is just trying to cut you down a level for no good reason, a piece of negativity without how to correct that problem. And you just cut that relationship off, or you keep it topical, or you transform it into something where you can feel empathy and compassion for that person. So it doesn't, get to you, and maybe you can help them out by showing them that you aren't going to get angry with them. You're going to care about them and show them how you feel in a positive way, not rough them up.
You know, thank you. Yeah, you definitely don't want to do it in a rough them up way.
I got one last one for you, Joe.
All right.
Being somebody who is from Pittsburgh and has stayed in Pittsburgh, what excites you about the city from what you've seen in terms of transformation, and where do you think the city's going?
So growing up in Pittsburgh, I was born in 1980, moved in 1981 to probably Arlington is where we first moved. Then we jumped around a lot all over South Pittsburgh. Very different environment, steel mills closing, nothing happening. All through the 90s, still a lot of stagnation, very little happening. Even into the early 2000s, you barely had like the South Side happening in some schools and educational systems. And then now you have just a wave of things continually happening, which is super exciting. I hope that the Pittsburgh doesn't lose its Pittsburgh, though, because you see other cities like Seattle and Portland, they turn into these, I don't know. I don't like it. For instance, I'll say I don't like Lawrenceville. Like, I don't like it. It doesn't feel like Pittsburgh to me. It doesn't. I don't see
the
people.
Hipster.
Yeah, I don't
like
believe
the
that's
hipster,
Pittsburgh.
yeah.
Like that doesn't feel like Pittsburgh to me. So I'm hoping these communities can still stay the way they are. I would say East Liberty is a very tragic occurrence because you can literally see one side of the street be like a boutique cupcake place, and then on the other side is a wig shop. You know what I mean? And guess what's happening to those wig shops? They're getting bulldozed, right, by the dozen. So you're going to lose that culture. They'll try to implant culture. They'll give a grant to someone to try to do something where then you'll have that very strong African American population there, and then you'll have one place. Like, that's not culture. That you can't pay for that. So I hope Pittsburgh doesn't continue to lose that interesting dynamic where you have Shenley. 50-50. There was actually a lot of foreign kids at the time there, but Pittsburgh for a long time, and I think it could use more diversity, not from a white-black perspective, but from a cultural perspective. I hope we don't lose that intermingling. That's why, I think the 15210, you have a very diverse population over there, and hopefully it can remain affordable enough. Hopefully it can remain interesting enough. We don't need to bulldoze blocks because it's on a hill. No one wants to do it because they can't build a big giant bakery square, for instance. So none of the big fancy developers want to do that. So I'm hoping that it can hold on to some of the way Pittsburgh was, which was I think there's beauty in the working class. Like, there's a beautiful thing when you have these stable neighborhoods. Like, back in the day, Beltsuver was extremely strong African-American neighborhood where, it was a time when the steel mills were abundant. So there was jobs, and in Arlington, it was the same way where my, grandfather was a drywall or a plasterer, a good solid income. And you had these big picnics and these big family things happening. If you get to no one in Lawrenceville is a family. Do you know what I mean? It's just a bunch of transients, and they all look the same. They all act the same. They all want the same stuff. And it might look nice, but when you actually look a little closer, it's really boring. And I hope Pittsburgh doesn't get boring, because that is very economically profitable to do those things, to cater to the boring, basically.
And lose the culture.
Yeah, do you think there's also a way to improve neighborhoods, while keeping the culture the same way?
Yeah, but there's so much money and corruption in there, and it's all someone will be like, "Well, you're a developer, you did that." Well, okay, I'll take that hit. I think there's some corruption in that as well, and maybe I'm corrupt. Who knows? But I would also say that then there's all this government money that flows into this crony capitalism, where the same hands get their hands on it, and then they put together a project, and does it really impact? And then is that person truly caring about the neighborhood? It's very easy to act as if you care. I could say I care about Wilkinsburg right now. Hey, I care about Wilkinsburg. I love Wilkinsburg. I grew up in Wilkinsburg. I lived in Wilkinsburg all my life. Those were all lies. I just lied. Can I get a grant for Wilkinsburg?
They'll be like, "Can I get a grant?"
Yeah, people will lie to get those grants. I see it all the time. There's developers, and you got Homewood. Well, there's developers in Homewood, and they're Mr. Homewood. I'm like, man, you grew up in Sewickley. Yeah, and but the narrative that they tell is very different in order to get these things. The corruption is all throughout, and it doesn't. It ends up impacting. So you have people who truly care about the community. So you have to really screen those people, and oftentimes the people who are shouting the loudest and angriest might have the best opinions, and you gotta kind of listen to them. But you still can't stagnate on that either, because if someone's saying I don't want anything to change, and you have blocks and blocks of burnout houses and you have crime infestation, no one wants that in the community. That's not a part of the culture. That's not culture. That's erosion.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard balance to find, because you have to like change the whole neighborhood, like culturally.
For young people, I heard something on Tim Ferriss's book, something. Can't remember, a Tribe of Mentors, I think.
Yeah, I think
yeah, that's a good one. But there was one person on it. I think it was that Ali, but she's from the Middle East. She had all these issues. She went and spoke out against a lot of very challenging things and became a big name and a politician and did a lot of great things. But she said that people always come there and say, I want to do something. It's usually young, inspired kids in college. I want to do something. Her first thing is go make money and then go do something. Because if not, you're going to spin your wheels. You're not going to know what you want to focus on, and you can't make an impact. And one of my mentors very early on, actually, we toured a project in Wilkinsburg, and it was this phenomenal person who put, people who are getting out of prison to work in the masonry fields. It was a beautifully run program. It still is. And it was taking dozens of people and giving them a very solid paying skill set and teaching them. And it was very well run. And I was inspired by that. I was probably 29 or 30. And I said to the gentleman who is one of my mentors, Mark Bebro, I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. He said, get your business straight, make some money, and come back to me in 5 years. And I was like, man, screw you, man. I could do it now. And I didn't. I stuck with his advice, not because I wanted to, but because he was right. I had no money. I had no reach. And I waited, and then I started doing these little projects, and then I started doing the smaller things that I could handle. Maybe it's a mentorship like we did, or whatever it is, like that becomes something. So you got to have the power to really enact the change. But so many people either choose change. I want to fight for the change, but I'm against going out and getting money, so I'm not going to do that. You have no power.
Yeah, you can't enforce change without any money. Everything got a price tag on it.
Yep, and they think then you become dependent on these government programs that are giving you grants and all this kind of stuff.
And
so
by their stipulations,
everything they say.
Like
yep. Oh yeah, I wanna help support African American female entrepreneurs in this zip code, and they go, well, we'll give you money, but it has to be African American females in this zip code. And then the person goes, okay. And then you go to another zip code. Is that really your passion? Maybe it is. Maybe it's African American female entrepreneurs. But what if it isn't? Now you have to do that. I don't have to do that. And if I think something's a BS program and I don't believe in it, I don't have to support it, because there's no one telling me where my money has to go, and who I have to help. And it's a beautiful place to be, because I know I can make more change with just a few $1,000s than I could with tens of thousands of dollars of grants that tell me I have to do this, I have to cut this ribbon, I have to kiss this baby in front of the camera with this politician, I have to do all this stuff. I don't have to do that. So make that money, and then but keep your soul, and make sure you know where you're always going to come back to.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions we had today. And hey, Joe, thanks for coming on today.
No problem, my friends.
Really appreciate your time. For
some graduates now, right?
Yeah, finally some graduates. We graduated college.
Flew by, man. It flew by.
Even though X went to our rival college.
Where'd you go, X?
I went to Pitt.
Okay, all right. I did Pitt MBA coursework there for many years. So
yeah, I'm a real hometown kid. I didn't run away. I didn't run away to state college
to the enemy. So, but that was good, man. I'm real proud of both of you guys, because I think coming up from that first pitch, which you did, was extreme.